there is that Ellis Island thing, and you talk about it in your book, but it is awesome. Like, I read this book about the Statue of Liberty and, the Irish and the Scandinavians and the Nigerians coming to the feet of this totem of human liberty and the creed, and that it's accessible to anyone regardless of the color of their skin or nationality. It is awesome. Like, it's amazing. And that's part, like, it's excellence plus diversity wrapped in this particular American cultural software is amazing, and it's very unique, and it's a miracle in human history. So I'm not saying I have a way to square those two things together, but I wonder what you make of that.
Well, what you just described is amazing, and I think that it's likely that our creed, our history, all kinds of things, the fact that we had open spaces, not as open as we like to pretend it was, but nonetheless, all of that played into something very special, and I think is the reason why we were able to do something that almost nobody else could do. I mean, yes, there are some multicultural societies in America, in the world that work, but they're very small. Multiculturalism is very, very hard to hold together, and of course, multiculturalism is a much bigger issue than multi-ethnic or multiracial. Yeah. But here's the thing that I try to point out in my book, is that for all of us who had relatives that came during that great wave during the Ellis Island period, it didn't work. Most immigrants were living in extreme poverty. The commissions that studied this about 10 years before they cut the immigration way down, they found that the levels of immigrants that were in the poorhouse and insane asylums that had terrible diseases, that it was too many. It was just too much. And of course, what tends to be when people study immigration, they rarely look at, well, what about the people who are already here? Just like we look at the beginning of this country. What about the Indians? What about the indigenous who are here? We're finally kind of paying a little more attention to that. Yeah. So what made the Ellis Island story so wonderful is what happened after 1924. At that point, it wasn't, most of those gains of whites that I was mentioning earlier were immigrants. They were white immigrants who finally had a tight enough labor market that they could form unions that could actually negotiate. And it wasn't all about unions, but unions were a big part of this.